Hey now, everybody. Welcome to Inglet.org. This is Professor Island, and today we're talking about how to use the honors course calendar. The honors courses are all listed here, and they essentially run pretty similarly in terms of their content. Keep in mind that there is no book for any of these courses. I provide you with the material one way or the other. Specifically for the Film as Literature course, I will let you know for each week the movie that we're seeing, but there's no link because we're actually going to watch those movies in class. For the other courses, I will generally give you the material either by sending it to you in advance or handing it out to you in advance or giving you a direct link. And certainly the honors horror literature course is a good example of that. So for example, you have Night Surf by Stephen King here, and you have Nosferatu. This is a story, and this is a movie, and then this is a video, and I'm giving you two ways to see that video. And essentially, you're getting all the primary source material through the links here, and that way you don't have a book. If I give you the links in advance, or I send you the material by email in advance, I expect that you have viewed or read the material prior to coming into class. This is especially important for something like a full-length movie or a long story here, in which we don't have time to read it or to watch it in class. So what we do is we on our own we all read or watch the thing, and then we talk about it. We're ready to talk about it in class. One of the other elements you'll notice here that's consistent is the critical perspectives that are going to be sprinkled throughout, and certainly you have historical criticism here, psychoanalytical criticism, mythological criticism. For all the classes except for English 103, these are placed within the calendar by the context of the work that we're analyzing. For English 103, in which we're actually learning these for the first time, they're going to be listed in increasing order of complexity, but also the material will be tailored to the utilization of those particular critical perspectives. You'll also notice some other general, and by the way, when you click on one of these critical perspectives, it takes you to all of them. When you click on one, it takes you to all of them because they're all listed here, and they all have their own videos and such. There's also some stuff about formalist criticism, like conflict and things like that, and you would be sent to this page here in which you find discussions of the character, conflict, irony, symbolism, things you learned in English 101 but might be useful for your discussion. Also, when we get into like mythological and psychoanalytical criticism, you need to understand symbolism because that's how those critical perspectives are based. Is the author's use of symbolism in order to bring forth those particular translations. One of the other things that you'll find linked is other material that's very specific to the individual course. And obviously, if you're taking the children's literature honors course, there's a link here for children's literature as well as for Gothic literature, which in terms of era, you might have some crossover there. If you're doing horror literature, obviously you're going to have some Gothic literature elements, but you also might find some usefulness in children's literature because many children's, especially the original works, many of these children's literature pieces could qualify as horror works. We also have cinematic and film terms for the film as literature course, which also might be useful if you happen to be analyzing a film for children or a film that's a horror work. And then we also have some lyric and poetry material especially for English 103, which is a lyrics as literature course, but also, for example, for children's literature if you're doing poetry and things like that. And then finally, mythological archetypes applies to every class because we can always apply that Jungian theory. So these resources are available here to help you to actually apply analysis to the work, and certainly that's why it's linked from here. The other thing that you're going to see is a couple of links that I've created. Some of them, like this, are an actual document that discusses some historical context for it. In this case, the Brothers Grimm and what they were doing, what they were thinking about, and even just some general history of horror literature. You also are going to find that you have some videos that I've made. And here's a little bit of one here. These are YouTube videos, so they should be accessible on any type of media. Hey now, everybody, this is Professor Island, and today we're talking about the psychological aspects of horror fiction. And then you're off to the races, and very much like the video you're watching now, this video will then explain how the psychoanalytical aspects, specifically about horror, are manifest. And I give you examples of various works and how that works. The other type of link that I give you, which is not so common in here, because by the time you get to a 200 level literature course, you should understand some of these things, but they have to do with paper formatting and that kind of stuff, and certainly the annotated works cited note cards, if I ask you for them. Depends on the course, actually. This kind of material would be here, and we give you that. And in fact, if you go to the website, you'll find that some of those things are repeated throughout, in which you are finding some stuff that you've seen before, but I'm reminding you about it just in case you're like, well, I forgot what does this guy want in terms of an outline or something like that, or what does this guy want in terms of a peer edit? What am I supposed to be saying to my partner here? And then I'll give you some information about that. So those things will all be linked to resources on the website. Remember that the calendar is there as a guideline. While these have dates on them, in terms of week, they don't necessarily line up until later in the semester. The first week is usually, there's only one day of class usually during the first week of classes. And also, I usually bring in the library folks to give you a set of resources that you'll be using during the course of the class. And so as part of that, things might get a little bit backed up. We might be getting into Night Surf in week 2, and then Nosferatu maybe the second part of week 2, or maybe not till week 3, etc., etc. But by the time we get down here, you'll notice there's a lot of more open space because we're working on your final paper. We're doing some peer editing and things like that, and of course we're filling in the material that has not been covered. For all of my honors courses, the last 2 weeks of regular class have presentations. And of course, when you get into the grading policy of the course, you'll see that there is a presentation, about an 8 to 10 minute presentation that you give at the end of the semester as part of your grade. And that's what that's why there's nothing else to do here other than these presentations and obviously turning in your final paper. Keep these things in mind. Obviously, if you have any questions about any of this stuff as we go along, you can always contact me at earthlink.guy at englitguy@earthlink.net, or simply ask me in class, because these are on-campus courses. But I always answer my email, and sometimes getting an answer at 3 o'clock in the morning can help you to keep moving on a paper or keep moving on an assignment and get that work done. All right. So as always, look around, and if you find something you don't quite understand, ask questions, and above all, stay in touch.